Assalamu alaikum. Good morning to all of you, my dear students. This is the second prose in Unit 2, A Nice Cup of Tea by George Orwell. So, let's see that who the prose writer is. We shall go and see something about the author. Eric Arthur Blair. That is the actual name of this author. And George Orwell is his pen name. And he lived between 1903 and 1950. Was an English novelist, essayist, journalist, and critic whose work is marked by clear prose, awareness of social inequity, opposition to totalitarianism, and candidly a frank support of democratic socialism. So this man is so supportive of democratic system, and instead of and he was utterly against the system of capitalism. So Orwell wrote literary criticism, poetry, fiction, and polemical journalism. Something about the poem. He is best known for the allegorical novella called Animal Farm and the dystopian novel 1984, one of the famous work done by him. In 2008, the Times ranked him second on a list of the 50 greatest British writers since 1948. Let's see that what he has written in this poem. If you see the first page of this prose, in the warm-up area you can see a cup of tea and a warm-up question given to you. Here are a few varieties of tea. How many of these have you tested? Tick the boxes. Here are a few varieties of tea. How many of these have you tasted? Tick the boxes. There are 6 different types of tea described here. The first one is herbal tea, and next iced tea, next lemon tea, next green tea, next black tea, next tea with milk. To some extent, almost all the teas we have tasted. When we talk about herbal tea, what you say sukku tea is a herbal tea. Iced tea is very rare actually. We don't make iced tea at home. Lemon tea is very common. After having spicy food, almost we take lemon tea just to burn the fat. And to some extent, green tea. In that you're using the tamarind and all. It's a green tea. Black tea, you're just putting the tea dust in the water and boiling it, and then it will become a black tea. And finally, it's a very common tea that everybody of us are taking every day. That is tea with milk. So you might have prepared tea at your home in the absence of your parents. So tea with milk. So whenever there are few people who are male chauvinistic minded people, they never ever prefer to enter into the kitchen because they feel that entering into the kitchen is just like putting themselves below to the women. It's a matter of their prestige. Touching the vessel and preparing food is a matter of their prestige. So, unfortunately or fortunately, in this lockdown time, even people of that kind also forced to enter into the kitchen and prepare food for children and prepare tea most of the time for their family, for their spouse and children. And I personally, I'm speaking, I have prepared the tea long back when I was a child. Uh, Whenever my mom was, was not available at home. And even now, I love to make tea actually of my taste. So I never mix the water in the. I never mix the water with in the milk. So naturally the density, the thickness of the tea may be very good. When we allow these ladies, they put lot of water into it. In 1 liter of milk, they add 2 liters of water and serving to 300 people in the family. So I don't like this kind of, what to say, uh, contaminated contaminated or substandard thing. All right. So it's really a very interesting topic for people who love to be the part of domestic responsibility. So preparing food sometimes actually gives a lot of pleasure to us. All right, when you go and try some dish, all right, just to challenge your sibling or your parents, if you are trying to show that you also have that skill of preparing food, if you try something and unexpectedly it becomes so good, even beyond to the expected level, and if you enjoy eating it so deliciously, then definitely, right, it gives you kind of satisfaction that you have done something, great. Herbal tea. Herbal tea, uh, we get some, small sachets from the medical shop. All right, particularly from the herbal medical shops. When you put it in the tea or even a small in hot water, it becomes herbal tea. It's a ready-made herbal tea. Just you need to boil the water and mix that content into it, and it become herbal tea. And provided you have to add some sugar, maybe the sugar is already added up with the content, the powder form. Iced tea. Iced tea, I don't know how people take tea by putting ice into it. And I think out of the 6 different types of tea, I have not tasted one tea that is iced tea. Now my question is whether to put the ice in the prepared tea or the method of preparing the iced tea itself is somewhat different. And if you go to cafeteria, okay, say for example, barista, all right, cafeteria and all. If you order for the iced tea, they may serve you by putting it in the small plastic container, perhaps. And I have not tasted it. To be frank with you, I have not tasted it, and I don't know how it is. But I have a plan to try it at least once. And the next type of tea is lemon tea. There is nothing so serious in making lemon tea. Just you have to boil the water and put some drops of lemon into it. And indeed, of course, you have to add some sugar. But then it will become lemon tea. And normally, people prefer to take lemon tea whenever they take spicy food like biryani. And green tea is the fourth type of tea that is used to treat heartburning. When you take when you take more and more food, particularly spicy food, most of the time when you take spicy food and go to bed without it, without taking the care, definitely the next morning you will get a hot burning, and it's really painful and unbearable sometimes. So when you take green tea, to some extent it can reduce the pain, it can reduce the difficulties you have. So the making of green tea also is very simple. The most important ingredient in making green tea is what to say. Um, what to say in um, one second. What is the ingredient actually used for this? I'll check it out and tell you. It's it's a pudina tree. Okay, normally we are using the pudina. It's a kind of plant. Okay, that you have to put in the boiling water. So yeah, so green tea. So the main ingredient in the green tea is pudina. All right. So the next one is black tea. Black tea. We prefer black tea when there is no milk at home. Okay, when milk is not available in the shop, or maybe at home sometimes in the night, we make green tea, and sometimes even we wish to have the black tea sometimes. And the last one is tea with milk. It's very common. What you get in a hotel, in a roadside hotel, or 90% of the people are taking tea with milk. And more particularly in the Asian continent, more particularly in India, people take tea with milk only. All right. Particularly the people of middle class background. Maybe if you go to the top class, okay, what do you say? The rich people will be taking a black tea, but majority of the population prefer to have tea with milk only. So let's see what is there in the glossary part and learn the meaning of some important vocabularies used in the text here. Yes, there are few important vocabularies given with explanation. Curious means interesting. Controversial means arguable and disputable. Virtues means admirable qualities. Despise means hated. Stimulation means excitement. Optimistic means that is positive, okay, hopeful. And cauldron, a big pot used for boiling. And rationing and restricting the consumption of scarce commodity during war. Dangling means hanging freely and suspended. The spout means the pipe-like opening in a teapot throat, which tea is poured out, and liable means responsible. And mysterious means incomprehensible. And etiquette means socially acceptable behavior. Clear? So let's go and see what is given in the text. And I have taken one important source from the internet, and it is good for giving a I mean explanation about the prose, and it's really good. So here you can see the page, A Nice Cup of Tea by George Orwell. Okay, and this actually published in Evening Standard Journal in 1946 on 12th January 1946. All right, so the gist is given here. Let's go and see that what is the message in this prose. Suppose if you look up tea in the first very book that comes to hand, you will probably find that it is unmentioned, or at most you will find a few lines of sketchy instructions which give no ruling on several of the most important points. And this is curious not only because tea is one of the mainstays of civilization in this country, as well as in Australia and New Zealand, but because the best manner of making it is the subject of violation disputes. When I look through my own recipe for the perfect cup of tea, I find no fewer than 11 outstanding points. On perhaps two of them there would be pretty general agreement, but at least four others are actually acutely controversial. Here are my own 11 rules, every one of which I regard as golden. This is actually the text printed in the journal 1946. I am not actually displaying what is there in the text, but it is given in a broad screen. So in a single page, we can have this much of content, and it is easy for us to read the text. And that's why I am displaying this particular page that I have taken from the internet. So this is also the actual text written by the author. So he gives you some 11 rules one has to follow while making tea. 11 rules. What is the first rule? First of all, one should use Indian or Ceylonese tea. Ceylon means what? Sri Lanka tea. And China tea has virtues which are not to be despised nowadays. It is economical and one can drink it without milk. So here we can understand that in China, they don't use milk for making tea, and it is economical also. The most expensive ingredient of making a normal tea is milk. So milk is the most expensive, and that's why if you are not using it, automatically the tea becomes highly economical. And then, but there is not much stimulation in it. Okay, one does not feel wiser. Okay, wiser, braver, or more optimistic after drinking it. So people should not react in such a way that they have become wiser or so positive once after taking tea. Anyone who has used that comforting phase, a nice cup of tea invariably means Indian tea. Anyone who has used that comforting phase, nice cup of tea invariably means Indian tea. By and large, directly or indirectly, he prefers the Indian tea, where we are actually using the milk in the milk and water. Secondly, tea should be made in small quantities. I have seen people some years back, particularly the people of 90s, all right, 90s and all, born particularly in the beginning of 20th century, somewhere in 1920 and 30, who died just recently. Say, for example, grannies, and they are taking milk in such a big vessels, in such a big glasses. So it is their habit. When they take a small cup of tea, probably they won't be satisfied. When they take this much of tea, only then they feel they may have a feeling of contentment. All right, and I prefer, personally speaking, I prefer to take a small cup. And if I take more, then I cannot take. All right, some people they take moderately of this much, and some people they take this much of tea. All right, tea out of an urn is always tasteless. All right, while army tea made in a cauldron is kind of vessel, a pot. Okay, tastes of a grease and whitewash. I don't know how it is. If you make the tea in a gold round like pot, the taste become very greasy and whitish. Alright, the teapot should be made of china or earthenware and silver or uh, Britannia ware. Teapots produce inferior tea and enamel pots are worse. Though curious enough, a pewter teapot, a rarity nowadays, is not so bad. We are not using the pot, earthen pot now. All those golden days gone. All right. We prefer steel pots or silver pots to prepare tea, and which is inferior according to George Orwell. Not only inferior, scientific research says that when when we are making food, when we are preparing food in the metal vessels, it is not good for health. And the healthy one is earthen pot. All right. Even we have to supposed to put a water in the kusa or a small pot and to take. When we put the water in the kusa or earthen pot, the HP of the water may get adjusted. These days, most of the houses are using this, what to say, uh, water purifier. When we purify the water, important minerals like magnesium, okay, all these important minerals may be reduced to nothing. So taking water without mineral also not good for health. So when we put the what to say, filtered water, all right, mineral water into the mud pot, and if we take the water later, then definitely it will be good for our health. It's just like that. When you prepare the tea in the mud pot, that will be delicious at the same time good for health, as per the as per the statement given by the author. And let's see what he says further. Thirdly, the third point, the pot should be warmed beforehand. Alright. And this is better done by placing it on the hob than by the usual method of filling it out with hot water. So the pot should be warmed beforehand. So before putting the ingredients, say for example the water or the milk, whatever it is, you have to warm the pot first. You have to warm the pot first by placing it on the hob. Okay, in a hob. If you go to old houses, you can see the hob in the kitchen. In that, you can place that vessel, that mud pot. Okay, so you have to warm the pot beforehand, which means you have to warm it and then you have to put the milk into it. And fourthly, the tea should be strong. There are three different types of tea. See, light tea, medium tea, and then strong tea. There are few people they prefer to take only strong tea. When you add more quantity of tea dust, it becomes very strong. Or if you boil it for a long time, then also it becomes. And fourthly, the tea should be strong. And for a pot holding a square, if you are going to fill it nearly to the brim, 6 teaspoons would be about right. In time of rationing, this is not an idea that can be realized on every day of the week. But I maintain that one strong cup of tea is better than 20 weak teas. So, as per his calculation, one should take only strong tea. And as per his calculation, one strong tea is equivalent to 20 weak teas, which means normal teas. All true tea lovers normally like their tea strong, but like it a little stronger with each year that passes. So tea lovers, they take more and more stronger when the year passes. Actually, when they grow older and older, even uh, they take more, they take stronger, more and more stronger. You got my point. So, a fact which is recognized in the extra ration issue to old age pensions. So, what he says, just because the extra ration they are getting at their old age, they are adding more and more tea dust into it. When they are adding more tea dust into it, it becomes more strong. All right. And the fifthly, the tea should be put straight into the pot. Straightly. All right. No strainers not to be used, and muslin bags or other devices to imprison the tea. All right. In some countries, teapots are fitted with a little dangling basket under the spout to catch the stray leaves, which are supposed to be harmful. So in some countries, he has not mentioned a particular country where they are using dangling baskets. But this kind of dangling baskets is not good actually to uh, use for catching the strays. And actually, one can swallow. Swallow means taking, swallowing tea leaves in considerable quantities without ill effect. And if the tea is not used in the pot, it never refuses properly. Alright. So, in the fifth point, what he says, tea should be put straight into the water. The tea should be put straight into the, not the water, to the pot. Alright, without having any kind of dangling baskets next to it. And sixthly, one should take the teapot to the kettle and not the other way about. One should take the teapot to the kettle and not the other way about. So kettle means maybe you can say it's a kind of stove. The water should be actually boiling at the moment of impact, which means that one should keep it on the flame while one pours. So you have to set the kettle in a flame. Alright, when you are pouring the water into it. And some people add that one should only use water that has been freshly brought to the boil. But I have never noticed that it makes any difference. What he says, whether you put, whether you are mixing the, some people add that one should only use water that has been freshly brought to the boil. But I have never noticed that it makes any difference. Okay. The water should be actually boiling at the moment of impact. So when you have to set the pot in the kettle. When it is boiling, then you have to add the milk into it. Seventhly, after making the tea, one should stir it better, give the pot a good shake. After making the tea, one should stir it better it, and give the pot a good shake. Afterwards, allowing the leaves to settle. Today we are getting tea dust. This is actually the dust uh, made of the leaves, tea leaves. But in those days, okay, they used to use the leaves, the tea leaves directly into the milk. All right. Eighthly, one should drink out of a good breakfast cup. Eighthly, one should drink out of a good breakfast cup. That is the cylindrical type of cup. Cylindrical type of cup, not the flat. Even he actually prefers to have the tea in a cylindrical type of cup, not the flat one. I don't know whether if the shape of the cup changes. I don't know whether the taste of the tea changes or not. But he says this. He prefers the people to take the tea in the cylindrical type of cup. and the breakfast cup holds more. And with the other kind, one's tea is always half cold before one has well started on it. So if the tea is put in the cylindrical shape, cylindrical shape cup, definitely the temperature of the tea will not reduce immediately. I think that might be the reason. If you put it in the flat type of cup, definitely it will become chill. When the tea becomes chill, the taste will definitely change. The taste will definitely change. Ninthly, one should pour the cream of the milk before using it for tea. Ninthly, one should pour the cream of the milk. One should pour the cream of the milk before using it for tea. Milk that is too creamy always gives tea a sickly taste. So, what he says that the milk cream has to be removed. Otherwise, the taste will become sick. It will give a kind of sickly taste. One should remove it. One should pour the cream of the milk before using it for tea. Normally, it happens when you preserve the milk in a small vessel for some time immediately after boiling. After some time later, you can find a small layer on it. That is a creamy layer. The cream has to be removed when you are making the tea. Tenthly, one should pour tea into the cup first. Alright, this is one of the most controversial points of all. Indeed, in every family in Britain, since he is a British poet, he talks about his own country, Britain. There are probably two schools of thoughts on the subject. There are two different types of thoughts. Let's see what it is. The milk first The milk school can bring forward some fairly strong argument, but I maintain that my own argument is unanswerable. This is that by putting the tea in first and stirring as one post, one can exactly regulate the amount of milk, whereas one is liable to put in too much milk if one does it the other way around. Okay, so there are two different of thoughts on this particular subject. Okay, whether to put the whether to pour the tea into the cup first or something else. Lastly, tea, unless one is drinking it in the Russian style. What is the Russian style? Should be drunk without sugar. So from this last point, we can understand that Russians never add sugar in the milk, just like the Chinese. I know very well that I am in minority here. I think even the poet also he does even the poet also not preferring the sugar in the tea. But still, how can you call yourself a true tea lover if you destroy the flavor of your tea by putting sugar in it? See, according to the poet, if we add sugar in the tea, then it is just like destroying the taste of the tea. That's what he says. It would be it would be equally responsible to put in pepper or salt. Adding the sugar is just like putting the pepper or salt into the milk. What he says, adding the sugar in the milk is just like adding the pepper or salt. Suppose you add the salt or the pepper in the tea, then how the taste will be? It will be really devastating. it will be devastating. It will be, if you take even one sip of that salty tea, probably in the next second you may have a feeling of nausea. You may feel like you are vomiting. Tea is meant to be bitter, yes, of course. Just as beer is meant to be bitter, if you sweeten it, you are no longer tasting the tea. You are merely tasting the sugar. You could make a very similar drink by dissolving sugar in plain hot water. So, if you, as per the George Orwell's view, if you are adding sugar into the milk, into the tea, it's just like we are tasting the sugar, but not the actual taste of the tea. So, if at the same time, if we add the sugar into the boiling water or simply the water, the same kind of taste we may enjoy even if we put that sugar into the tea. You could make a very similar drink by dissolving sugar in plain hot water. So whether you put the sugar in the hot water or whether you put the sugar in the tea, both are same according to the poet. Some people would answer that they don't like tea in itself, that they only drink it in order to be warm and stimulated, and they need sugar to take the taste of it. So there are people who say that just to keep themselves, their physical body warm and stimulated, when the people wake up in the morning, most of the time they take tea, just like it is just to get stimulated. All right, to get accelerated, or to become active, people prefer to take the tea, and they need sugar to take the taste away. Those misguided people, I would say, try drinking tea without sugar for say a fortnight, and it is very unlikely that you will ever want to ruin your tea by sweetening it again. At the end of the process, he actually suggests the people. I suggest the tea lovers to not add the sugar and instead take the tea as it is without mixing up anything. So mixing up the sugar is just like a diluting of the tea. These are not the only controversial points to arise in connection with tea drinking, but they are sufficient to show how subsidized the whole business has become. There is also the mysterious social etiquette surrounding the teapot, and much might be written about the subsidiary uses of tea leaves, such as telling fortunes, predicting the arrival of visitors, feeding rabbits, healing birds, and sweeping the carpet. It is worth paying attention to such details as warming the pot and using water that is really boiling, so as to make quite sure of wringing out of one's ration the 20 good and the stock-ups of the 2 ounces. Ounces means quantity ounces. Properly handed out to represent. Today, it has been commercialized that tea sachets are available in the market. But unfortunately, even the sugar also added in the sachet, and one cannot have the cup of tea by putting the sachet into it without sugar. So somehow, the author is trying to convey the message with 11 important rules one has to follow for making a cup of tea. So, in one sense, it seems to be very tough and very rigid and very complicated for every one of us to follow. Not everybody of us can follow all these 11 points, but to some extent, we can follow these 11 lines and make the perfect tea for ourselves and our family. So I hope that you might have enjoyed this prose, and I suggest you to go through the same text again for your better understanding. Thank you very much.